if folks are interested, there are 2 chapters where I talk about reading the Bible as indigenous literature. And there it is. And one way that actually in the writing of that book, here I was a pastor for many years. I've been teaching the Bible for decades and decades. But I feel like I came to a new understanding of how the Bible works. And one way to say it is this: the Bible is the literature of an indigenous people, a tribal people who were called the Israelites or the Jews. They were a group of tribes tied to their land. And like many indigenous people, they experienced colonization by a succession of invaders. Colonization by the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, later the Greeks, I guess the Syrians, and then the Romans. And as indigenous people, they had developed these bottom-up ethical norms. Now, they said they came from God, but they also, we might say, came from the earth. They came from God in a time when they were deeply dependent on the earth and each other. And they make perfect sense in that way. That's why you see for example, in the book of Leviticus, so many laws about taking care of the land, right? This is part of your life. And then the Romans and the other invaders come along as colonizers, and they have a different set of values. And they're trying to impose that set of values on these people. And in that way, when they're calling people back to these primal values, they're saying these values are more fundamental, they're more primal, they're more original, they're more divine. So Colossians would be Paul, who's become a follower of Jesus, who's an indigenous Jewish prophet, who's calling people back to those essential values, which, by the way, many of them can best be conveyed not through a set of rules, but through a set of stories about a father whose son runs away.